And welcome to another Fast Take. I'm Rod Rodriguez. I've got Jack Murphy here with us. We're going to talk about episode 2 from season 5. This was all about the Russian military. So we were talking really about warfare, Russia style. Jack, tell us a little bit about what did you learn as you were gathering this information? You had two really educated guests here talking on information warfare, on the intricacies of the Spetsnaz and there was another KSS unit. I can't remember the name of the acronym, but definitely talk to us a little bit about that. What were your thoughts as you were kind of going through the story?
I mean, there's a lot. I mean, this is like a very unique episode that we did. The last episode we just did, because it literally took place during the Russia's invasion of Ukraine. So the first guest that I interviewed, Mark Galeotti, is a world-renowned expert on the Russian military. I interviewed him the day before the invasion. The second interview we did for that episode was with Tim Weiner, who literally wrote the book on the history of the CIA, Legacy of Ashes, and he's written many other history books. And I did that interview about a week after the invasion. So the time frame is fascinating, and I think that it would be really interesting to go back and talk to all of our guests honestly now that the invasion has happened, and see what, if anything, they would revise or change, because I think even some of the best experts out there are having to revise some of their thoughts and analysis of the Russian military based on the current performance in Ukraine. The interview I'm going to do tomorrow for the next episode is with a woman who also has specialized in this field, and we're going to do a real deep dive on the Russian military performance in Ukraine. So this whole 3-podcast series on Russia has turned out like completely different than I initially envisioned it being. It's all like literally happening in real time right before our eyes. And I'm kind of, not just me, but I mean, I think some of the smartest people out there are all sort of scrambling to update and assess and revise their thinking on some of these subjects.
I couldn't agree with you more. I think that's been the challenging part of this special series that we did on Russia, because we were talking about doing this last year before any of this Ukrainian was even close to happening. We were talking about Russia in the sense of being a superpower, a near peer competitor, what the world would look like what were their goals going to be, we were going to look at their military force from a perspective of what would it be like if we engaged them, in a comparison maybe even to us, and of course what their goals would be, what their strengths are, what are they good at, what are they not good at. And instead we have a real life example. It's happening every day, and so we're trying to consistently play catch up to the Russians. I feel like the Russians are beating us to the punch every time,
in a sense, but I mean, it's also providing like real-time feedback, right? That a lot of the things that we would be reporting on otherwise would be somewhat theoretical, right? Like, this is how we think they would perform based on, the 2008 intervention in Georgia, or maybe the Chechen civil war, these much smaller scale campaigns. Now we have a real life shooting war, unfortunately, but it is giving us some ground truth to report on, right? And to base our assessments on.
The president of Ukraine recently addressed Congress, and he's asking us to close the sky. That's something that's been in the news a lot, is this, no-fly zone. He wants to prevent Russians from flying over Ukrainian sky. In that address, and I just finished watching it again, just so I have fresh in memory, he also talks about, well, if you can't do that, give us the ability to shut it down. Give us the weapons and technology that I know you have to shut the skies down. That's something we didn't talk about in this episode. I don't think we realized, looking back on things, how important the sky was going to be. But Tim talks about that, the other gentleman.
Mark Galeotti.
Yeah, Mark actually talks a little bit about that. It was Tim Weiner. Tim did. Tim talked about Putin's ability to bust cities. He says, we're going to look at, an insurgency. It's going to be, they're going to get dug in, but, Putin has the ability to destroy cities. And we're seeing it now. We're seeing beautiful buildings destroyed, civilian buildings being targeted. As we go into episode 3, what are your thoughts on no-fly zone? What are your thoughts on Zelenskyy asking for us to help him shut down the sky?
Well, there's a couple of different ways to look at that. Zelenskyy may be asking for the world, knowing that he's going to get, something substantially less. It's an opening gambit in his negotiations with the United States. I think Zelenskyy must know, and our government understands, that we can't truly have a no-fly zone over Ukraine the way we did in Iraq during the 1990s and 2000s, because it would mean direct conflict with Russian pilots, with Russian military, direct Russian to U.S. military engagement. President Biden has been very clear from the get-go, like, that is not going to happen. We are not going to have troops in Ukraine. Not happening. Like, that's the threshold. That's the line. That is where we would get into a very dangerous escalation. But then the second thing that you mentioned is we could supply the Ukrainians with the air defense systems that they need to create a de facto no-fly zone, which would make the airspace so contested and so difficult for the Russians to operate that they probably would not be flying many sorties. This goes back to reassessing some of the things that we believed about Russia. And I'll use myself as an example here. I did not think Russia was going to invade. And when they did, I thought 48 to 72 hours, this thing is over. Like, the Russians are going to establish air superiority immediately, go in with pre-assault fires, armored columns it's going to be shock and awe. We did not see that. There were like top think tanks authoring articles like, why is Russia's Air Force missing? What the hell is going on here? And then we see armored vehicles running out of gas and abandoned on the side of the road and stuck in the mud, or soldiers just leaving, and farmers driving around in T-90 battle tanks. So it's like, okay, we need to like drastically reassess what we thought the Russian military was capable of. And now we can see a profound inability to plan and execute complicated military operations. So I think that, yes, the answer is going to be that we are going to funnel more and more anti-aircraft systems to Ukraine. Some of this stuff is happening overtly, like the Javelin missiles and so on, that we are funneling these weapons to Ukraine. Some of it is allegedly happening covertly through, Title 10 military authorities versus Title 50 covert action authorities. There was a report even out there that SA-8 SA-8, their Russian military anti-aircraft system was being brought out of CIA stockpiles and sent over to Ukraine. I think that maybe the bigger thing that I take away from all of the reports that I've been reading and things I've been hearing from my sources is that the gloves are off in so many ways, and that we are funneling everything we can get to Ukraine as fast as we possibly can. We're just going to flood that area of operations with anti-aircraft systems and anti-tank systems. And I mean, like, short of the sort of direct military confrontation we were just speaking of, I think Zelenskyy can probably get anything he wants.
Is there a point here where, as we see escalation, I mean, we're fighting the Russians via the Ukrainian military. Is there a point where Putin just says, okay, I get it, I know what this is, so I'm going to just attack you directly?
You mean attack like Western Europe directly?
Attack Western Europe directly. I know this is your gun. These are your guns, your missiles, your stingers. This is all you're doing. Enough with the proxy war. You want a war, I'll give you a war.
Sure. I mean, that's always a possibility, but, based on, past thresholds and things we've seen, we fought proxy wars with the Russians all over Latin America, South America, the Middle East, Eastern Europe, Africa. I mean, you name it. And it never got to that point. So that would, signal that the rules have changed or that there are no rules, right? And that may be unlikely, but it's something you have to consider when you do these things. You can see how badly Russia has performed in Ukraine. I mean, for him to make a move on NATO nations and actually go up against the combined weight of all of the militaries, essentially, of Europe and the United States, I mean, that's the definition of insanity, right?
But nothing's off the table. Like I hear people talk about their assessments, their analysis, and it just feels like it's 2021, baby, and nothing's off the table. We just simply don't know what's really going to happen next. What are they thinking? What is he thinking? It's really hard for me to look at this from a perspective of other than just asking questions. I'm actually kind of hesitant to make a prediction, to say, oh, I think they're going to do this, I think they're going to do that. The next thing that we are going to talk about on this series is, of course, more. We're going to drill down to the military bit, but we're also going to talk about the economics of this war, the amount of money that's being spent. There's all these projections about how much this is costing the Russian government, both to wage this war, but also in sanctions, and what it's doing to the Russian people. The ruble has dropped. The Ukrainian government has declared cryptocurrency legal. So they're collecting donations. They're making crypto transactions. I'm very interested in understanding the crossroad between the economics of this war and Russia waging warfare itself.
Yeah, I mean, it's a fascinating subject. And I mean, right now we're seeing really a maximum pressure campaign put on Russia from every angle we possibly can attack them, again, just short of having a direct military confrontation with them. What the long-term impact is, or even short-term impact of those sanctions is, remains to be determined. I do think it's putting pressure on Russia, though.
We also saw a bunch of folks trying to go join the fight, and we talked about it during, I think, the last Fast Take. Don't go over there. Don't do it. But we're seeing returning Americans saying, this isn't what I thought it was going to be. I don't have my M4. I don't have, if I get injured, I'm not going to Walter Reed. Have you heard anything on your side from your sources about the Ukrainian Foreign Legion, or whatever they're calling it, that organization where foreign fighters can go join the fight?
Yeah, there was that Ukrainian base that got lit up a week ago. And I was told that about a third of the foreign fighters just up and quit right there. They decamped and went back to Poland. So a lot of them have already headed home. A lot of them are sitting around in Lviv doing nothing, from what I understand. There are some foreign fighters in Odessa who are fighting. I do know that. And then I have a few contacts of mine who are journalists as well, who are in Ukraine right now. And they have met foreigners, some of them foreign, showing up to fight in Ukraine. And they're fantasists and war tourists and just kind of bunglers that you wonder why the hell they're even there.
We're going to talk about that a little bit in another episode, because I think that's an interesting fact and an interesting part of this war, especially with all the social media, with all the communication that is happening. We're seeing the recruitment. We're seeing people talk about it. There are people posting TikTok videos. Once they hit the ground, they're like, here I am in the fight. And we're also seeing the TikTok videos are like, oh, this got real. I'm out.
Yeah. And the Ukrainians are already the Ukrainian soldiers are getting very skeptical of the foreigners who are showing up. Like, we don't need you guys like coming over here to play war and getting some, making TikTok videos, I was even told about one guy who showed up with his girlfriend. and they both were like, hey, can we sign up? And like, I guess they gave them AKs and they hung out for a little bit. I don't know if they're still around or not, but just like crazy stories like that. And it's war. It's a really nasty war, and it's going to get nastier. So you're going to hear off the wall stories like that.
It used to be dinner in a movie. Now it's
hey baby,
let's go. It's AK-47 and war. Jack, what do we got going on for the next episode, man?
So the next episode, I'm going to interview Rita Konov. I apologize in advance if I'm mispronouncing her name. She specializes in urban warfare in Russia and is a academic. And she's done some work already on analyzing Russian military performance. And so we're going to talk in depth about that for the next episode.
Outstanding. Looking forward to it. Folks, make sure you go check out stripes.com. Use promo code podcast to get 50% off your digital subscription to Stars and Stripes. That's 50% off of your digital subscription to Stars and Stripes, and you use podcast when you use promo code podcast. All right, folks, this was the fast take. We're trying to make these fast takes a little bit shorter because it's supposed to be a fast take. But of course, if you have anything you guys want to contribute to this conversation, you can find us on Twitter at StripesMMPod. You can also find Jack Murphy. He lurks on the Twitterverse at Jack Murphy RGR, and you can find me at RodPodRod. Last thing, Jack, should Zelenskyy have worn a suit?
I don't give a
There you go. We're going to leave it on that note. Folks, I'm Rod Rodriguez. That was Jack Murphy. This was your Fast Take.